Welcome back. So the first thing that we need to learn about HTML is the common HTML document structure. So a structure that each and every HTML document needs to have. But let's start by taking a very quick look at the project that we're going to build throughout this section. So we are building the code magazine. So as you can see here, and in this code magazine, we are building this very simple kind of blog post called the basic language of the web. So we have some links here, we have images, we have some bold text, we have, here you see we have some italic text, we have lists, and yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff that we will learn in this section so that by the end you will have learned the fundamentals of HTML and will end up with this project. Okay, but anyway, let's now finally get to work. And the first thing that we need to do again is to create our project folder. So let's go back to our desktop or to where you are working with your files. And what I'm going to do is to open up this folder that we just downloaded in the last section. So basically the starter code. And then I'm going to reach into this starter folder and grab a copy of the starter files here. So I will copy this folder and put it on my desktop right here. Now, instead of doing that, you could also simply go ahead and use this folder here as your project folder, but that might lead to some confusions. So I always prefer to simply copy this folder here to somewhere else. Okay, let's go back to VS Code. Can actually close this. And then let's come here to the menu and then File and open a new window. All right. And then right here, we can select Open Folder, or we can also expand the sidebar here and click on Open Folder right here. So remember that this will define our project folder. So I'm going to my desktop and then select this folder that I just created there. So open, and there we go. So we can close this one now and push this one to the left side. This panel we don't need. And then here inside of our project folder, we can, just like before, create a new file, and we will once again call it index.html. So it's just a regular file with the HTML file extension and the name of index, which should always be the main page of any website. All right. So as I mentioned before, we have some images here as our starter files and also this text file here. So let's actually also open up this file. And now I will click this icon here to collapse this sidebar to give us some more space. Okay. Now remember how in the first section we used this kind of cheat to create our HTML structure. So we wrote the exclamation mark and then tab, and that then gave us all of this structure. However, to properly learn HTML, we of course need to know how to write all of this structure on our own. And so that should always be the first thing that we learn in HTML. So we start with an empty page, and then the first thing that we need to do is to declare a so-called doc type. So just write the less than symbol, exclamation mark, and then doc type. And you see that VS Code is actually trying to autocomplete this here for us, but let's just write it all by hand so that this code basically sticks in your memory. Okay? So we have to write exclamation mark doc type HTML in order to basically tell the browser that this document uses HTML. Next up, we need to create an HTML element. So remember from the last lecture that to create an element, again, we use the less than symbol, then the name of the element, which in this case is HTML, and then we close that. And once again, VS Code automatically now closes that element for us. So it created this closing tag. Now, in case you don't want that, you can actually turn off that functionality. And let me show you how. So again, you come here to the settings, and then the name of this setting is called auto close tags. And actually, I will turn this off for now so that you can really write this code by hand instead of having VS Code helping you. So we will turn this back on a bit later, but for now, I really want you to learn how to write these elements by hand without any help. Okay, so we have the opening and the closing tag of the HTML element. And now, as for the content, we will actually put another element inside it. So let's give ourselves some space here. And then inside of the HTML, we want first a head element. So let's write it, opening, and I will then immediately close it actually, because for now we will not put any content in there. Okay, so the head and then the body. And I will explain in a second what each of these actually is. So each and every HTML document always needs to start with the HTML element like this. Then inside of this element, as we just put, we need one head element and one body element. Now, the head element is basically for things that are not visible in the browser window. So this head will contain the page title, some additional information about the page, a link to CSS files, or other things. And as we go through the course, we will fill this head with all kinds of different elements. But for now, all I want to do is to just specify the title. So let's use the title element for that. And this page I want to call the basic language of the web, HTML. So basically that's the title here of this blog post as well. Okay, and then we need the closing tag of this element. Okay. Then the body is actually for all the elements that will be visible on the page. So all the elements that we see here in the browser will always be inside of the body element. And just to show it to you, instead of leaving it empty, let me put some code here. So I will again use the heading 1 element, so h1, that we used in the very first coding lecture. And let me just grab this text from here. So that's the content, and then again, closing it. All right. Now we haven't saved this file yet, but as we do, Prettier will again format this file for us. So let's give it a save. And you see that now we have the correct indentation. And by indentation, what I mean is that since this head element, for example, is inside the HTML, it should have some space here to make that visually obvious. Okay, so basically this is just a tab here. So if I hit the tab key, then it will add another level of indentation. And so now it's at the same level as the title, which doesn't make sense because the title is also inside of the head, right? So we have the head inside of HTML, and then inside of the head, we have the title element. And so therefore, it has another level of indentation, okay? Now this is just for aesthetic reasons to make our code more readable. So the browser really doesn't care about this indentation, but it is still important for us to be able to read the code. So again, let's give it a save. And I think we are ready now to actually go ahead and open this in the browser. So let's come to our project folder and then double click index.html. And nice, here it is. Let's put it here first, close up this one. But I will also leave this demo open just so we see what we want to achieve in the end. Okay, Let's close up this one here. And with this, we learned the basic structure of HTML. So let's just quickly review. So every HTML document always needs to start with the so-called doc type. And so this will let the browser know that we are actually using HTML in this file. And all browsers will then know that they should use the HTML5 specification to render this HTML. Then we have the HTML element, which is always the parent element of both the head and of the body element. So this structure is really always the same in all web pages. We always need to have an HTML element with a head and with a body. Now, what we put into the head and the body is optional, but having these two is not optional. So we always need head and body. Now, in this situation, all we put in the head is just the title element, but here we can put all kinds of other stuff that are not visible or that are not rendered here in this main part of the browser. On the other hand, the content that we actually want to be rendered here should go into the body. And so that's why having this h1 element here that then appears visible on the page. Okay, and that's it. That's the basic HTML structure for each and every HTML document that you really need to know. And with that, let's move on to the next lecture, where we will learn a couple of new elements for working with text. So I hope to see you there soon.